open source framework, and it is developed using like a JavaScript environment, and AngularJS mainly using for developing for dynamic application, application. Okay, AngularJS is a completely JavaScript based framework, and it is used at client side programming, and you need to integrate with web pages using JavaScript. So here the term is nothing but JavaScript. So it's clearly clearly says that if you want to work with AngularJS, we have to know the knowledge about JavaScript, because AngularJS purely it's a completely JavaScript based framework, and it is used at client side programming. So we need for JavaScript knowledge for developing for AngularJS kind of like a web application. Okay, and we are saying that AngularJS is a open source, and it is maintained and given by the Google, If you want to require any related AngularJS API or AngularJS versions, so we have to see for AngularJS.org. So in this website itself, it's available for legacy and latest. So the term legacy is nothing but old old versions. Latest means earlier versions. So legacy also available and latest also available, and latest one is the 1.6x, and like legacy they are considered as a 1.2 or like 2x before 1.2x and earlier one. So these all are comes under legacy frameworks. So AngularJS is a structural framework, and it is a structural framework. Structural framework means here we can see about structural. We are like everyone know about C language, because it is a fundamental for every programming language. C language is a structural programming. Here everything is a bonding, like it's nothing but started with main block and ended with main block. Similarly here in AngularJS also some directives are there. So which directives gives some information about when to use which directory and when to use when to you are not using which directory. All the things is clear. So here we see here we are we thinking about structural, like AngularJS is a structural framework, and it implements the MVC design pattern to develop the application. And AngularJS implements MVC design pattern to develop the application. So to develop the application, here we have to know the one important point. Generally MVC pattern is side. Generally we think that some people are advanced because some people are already placed in companies. They already know about server side knowledge. So server side knowledge means they already worked with MVC kind of framework like Spring and ASP.NET kind of thing. ASP MVC. So they feel that like MVC means they're usually using it MVC. Here no doubt MVC earlier they started at server side programming, but when come to the client side programming, so many limitations are there. That's why we are preferring for MVC at client side also. So MVC at client side, AngularJS is providing. The facility is providing by the AngularJS. Okay, AngularJS provides a facility to use MVC pattern in client side programming. And one more thing is, here we have to know about the AngularJS. So framework. So generally here we have to know about the language and design pattern and framework. These things we have to avoid, because languages are directly installable in system, or tool directly installable in a system, which comes as a raw material, For example, JDK and Turbo C, these all the things is nothing but these are a tool which are directly installable in a system. So like languages are like kind of knowledge like programming things, and which is depend on directly installable like tools. So JDK and Turbo C, which provides an environment to work with Java as well as C language. So when come to the design pattern gives the information about how to develop the problem solution, how to develop the problem solution. So that is the information is given by the design pattern. Design patterns mostly developed based on the language based. We have like different design patterns for C++ as well as Java and .NET. So each and every design pattern discuss about particular language. So what is the procedure to develop for that problem solution? So there we are depend on like classes and method and objects, all the things we are dependent a design pattern. But frameworks are developed by using one or other programming languages, and which is used at development area, which is developed by the one or other programming language. If see about Spring is a server side programming language, like a server side framework, and which is developed by using the Java language. And we can use in Spring so many like cross-cutting technologies also. And we are not required for knowing internal thing about Spring, but we have to know about the what is the framework. So framework like here AngularJS is a framework, not a library. Is a framework, not a library. Library because jQuery is a library. So here we have to know something else regarding library and framework. So here we initially we saying that AngularJS is a framework which is based on the JavaScript framework. It is based on the completely based on the JavaScript. And here and jQuery also it is a library which is working under like JavaScript. But here while looking for jQuery and JavaScript, so if you want to develop for any application, we have to do for legacy code. Not we have to write about more code. We have to go for more code, so it automatically increases for memory, like increases for memory. So to avoid for memory issues and performance issues, we are preferring for AngularJS. And AngularJS provides its own environment and compile process at client side. AngularJS provides its own environment, runtime environment at compile time, compile and processing it, and this is the main thing, processing it at client side, So every time I'm stressing for a client side, because some people are thinking that AngularJS is MVC means we can use that like a server side. Here AngularJS is not for server side. AngularJS is for client side. So it have own environment for runtime and compile at client side. And dynamic web application. How to develop for dynamic web application using AngularJS. We have to see for how to develop a dynamic web application. Here using AngularJS, we can develop for client side dynamic web pages. We can develop for client side dynamic web pages. Here dynamic web pages, it's runtime behavior. So static web pages means only displaying the data, but when come to the dynamic web pages, it's not only displaying the data, and it produces for behavior and dynamic changes. That is the main thing. And update the HTML content at runtime without communicate with the server. So AngularJS update the HTML content at runtime communicate with without communicate with the server. Okay, and one more thing is we can process the data at client side as per the requirement. We can process the data. We can process the data at client side. Client side as per the requirement. As per the requirement. So these are the main thing about the AngularJS, but we have to see for how the AngularJS is working and how the AngularJS is used in dynamic web application. So before going to all the things, once we have to see for how the regarding AngularJS, AngularJS is a framework. It is used at dynamic web application, and AngularJS information. If you want to look, we have to see for www.angularjs.org. That website itself, AngularJS API and other things will be available. And legacy like AngularJS versions are 1.2x and earlier one, and latest one are the after 1.2x onwards. So,
So 1.2 or 2. Angular 2.
yeah, the thing is here, Angular 2 is different, Angular 1 is different, because Angular 1 have like 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 up to 1.x, like 1.6. So these all are purely for Angular 1. And Angular 2 is different because Angular 2 is not extension of Angular 1, and
Correct.
it is redesign of Angular 1. Redesign, it's separate design,
Correct.
because
Correct.
like how the C Sharp and Java is developed separately. Similarly, Angular 1 and Angular 2 is developed. And AngularJS we are used at like AngularJS provide the structural framework. Here, no doubt about AngularJS programming. We can go by everything step by step. Everything is clearly mentioned about. So which coding we have to use, which time and everything. And we are not used at server side, and we are using at client side. And directly install like languages are directly installable like JDK and Turbo C. So if you want to work with languages, we are depend on tools. That is nothing but JDK and Turbo C. But when come to the frameworks, we are not depend on tools. We are depend on what do you call some kind of like jar file or some kind of links. So if you come to the server side programming, we are depend on jar file. If you are working with Java side server side program means we are depend on jar file. But when come to the web application, we are depend on links. Nowadays they are giving as in terms of links. We'll see for that link also. So if you want to work with AngularJS, there are two types of links are available. What are the links? We'll see. Because we have to include that link in the script file. Then it will behave like a AngularJS. So what is that link? We'll see now. We'll see that one. Before going that one, I have to see for one application like this is for Angular says original web application like a website. Here some examples they given. We see for that example. So we know that every web application like web page start from HTML and end with the HTML. No doubt here, because for working with AngularJS, prerequisite knowledges are HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Here you can see for this web page coding, this web page coding starts from HTML tag and end with the HTML tag. But here in between this HTML tag, so many script files are there. Please focus all the people. Here in a head section start from here, and head section start from here and with line number 7. So here like two script files are there. One is the script src, something else end with angular.min.js, and at line number 5 one more script is there, src todo.js. So here this todo.js is the JavaScript kind of like a scripting file, and we are taking for remote accessing. So, and one more thing is script line number 4 they mentioned for http:/ajax. Google apis.com, Ajax, Lips, AngularJS 1.6.3, Angular min.js. So if you want to work with AngularJS means you have to add this link into the script in your head section. Then your application behave like AngularJS, because this link is gives the AngularJS 1.6 version. So this is the 1.6.3 version. So here here two types of AngularJS files are there. One is Angular min.js. Angular min is minified. So it is if we are using this one means the code will be coming like compressed, and we can directly use it, because as a programmer, as a developer, we are using for minified JavaScript link. But if you are going to give for end user, we are giving for what you call a zip kind of link we are giving. So this link, if you are added at head section, so then it become like a AngularJS file. So here no doubt, for if you are adding this link in head file, it behave like AngularJS. But one more thing you have to know, ng app. ng app is nothing but ng indicates Angular and app indicates this HTML tag. This HTML, generally we feel that HTML tag is the starting tag and HTML tag is the ending tag. But if you are mentioning for ng app for HTML means, so entire HTML code, the owner is the ng app. The owner of entire HTML code is the ng app. The name is the to-do app. So this to-do app is the main owner of this one, because based on the ng app at HTML, if you are giving means, if you want to change any tag in HTML at any cost, so entire HTML tag owner is the ng app. But ng app we can do at different tags also, like we can use it div tag, and we can do it span tag and different tags, because sometimes we required for some portion of code only update, not for entire thing. So at that time we are go with particular division, not for entire pages. So depends on the requirement, we are adding for ngf for tag level. That is the one more thing. And different things are there. Wherever ng is there, that all are belongs to the AngularJS kind of information, like proper like directives, ng submit and ng model. This ng, wherever the term ng shows, that this all are belongs to AngularJS. Okay, this is for one more thing. And one more example also there here. See here, above example, here they are using for only 3 files. The files are index.html, todo.js and todo.css. No doubt here todo.css. css indicates that like cascade style sheet. So here by default the giving for output here right side also. All the people please focus. Left side they mention for code and right side they mention for output. Right side they mention for output. That is nothing but to do one of two remaining. These all the things is belongs to the this code, like index.html code output here. So this output cascade style sheet, because background some color is there. See here color to do cs they are using for gray color. That is for background. So the gray color is coming background, and text decoration is line. So that's why it's coming like decoration of text, like it's coming like line. And to do JS, here they are mentioning for some JavaScript code and as well as AngularJS code also. So in this application they are using for 3 files, index.html and todo.js and todo.css. Earlier case some people are asking about whether AngularJS is developed in NetBeans or not. The thing is we can develop, but the thing is we have to maintain the files accurate or appropriate address. So we have to give everything is clear cut address. Then only ID will be understand for where the file is located. So we have to give for clear idea for address location. And here this is one more application. This is one more example. Index.html. Here they are using for different file, and here they are using project.js and project list.js, and they are using for 3 HTML files, details.html and list.html. So details.html and list.html. So usually in our application also, in real-time application also, we are going to do with multiple HTML files. So one application, if you are developing it as a dynamic web application, we are depend on like more than 10 or more than 100 or more than 1000 HTML files also. So at the time we have to provide for, and at the time we are using for common code for some HTML files. So what are the common code? We are using it like project.js or like project list.js, like that they are maintaining for some common code, and they are using it wherever they required common code using AngularJS directives, ngapp, and what are the things we have here? ngview, and one more is there somewhere, ngview. So this kind of directives, it's showing for different kind of like how to access for common code for different level. So here this index.html output is the this one, and at the same time list.html, if you want to execute this code, we have to copy this code and you can paste in our notepad or notepad plus plus or visual studio or some other java IDEs. We can copy and paste, and we have to do for clear idea for like a clear idea for like address location to read for JS files. Those things we have to see. So this is the thing, index.html. And one more thing is some tools also they given some for especially for reverse. I'm open these files without confusing all the things. Yeah, IDEs. So especially for AngularJS, they're given for some IDEs. So these IDEs, Angular IDE by web application, like web clips. So this IDE is given by AngularJS team. So you can use this team also. And some people are using like Java environment in IntelliJ IDEA, like using here Java. This is useful for Java, and here also we can use. And Visual Studio, we know about every like .NET people, they are using it. Visual Studio there itself by default we can use, and by using for customized JavaScript address like location we can use, and web store. So these are the IDEs we can use. No doubt here we can use the ID like AngularJS files in Eclipse and NetBeans also, but we have to give for a clear idea for file reading, like that is address allocation. So we have to give that one. So that is the one thing. And when come back to the AngularJS, how the MVC design pattern is implemented in AngularJS. How the here thing is how the MVC design pattern, implemented AngularJS. So here we have to see for two things. One is the MVC design pattern. MVC is a design pattern. MVC can be used in any technology. If you are using MVC, MVC can used in any technology. MVC can used in any technology, and MVC can used in any technology. So here so many advanced like example, like in C, like earlier we have struts MVC also there, but nowadays no one using struts in Java. But now market leader in Java technology is Spring MVC. So Spring MVC is there, and one more is the ASP.NET MVC. ASP.NET MVC also there. So these are the Spring MVC and ASP.NET MVC are the server side MVC frameworks. They are using for MVC design pattern at server side. Same MVC design pattern we are using at client side, but here the difference between client and server side is only thing is accessing of classes, methods, and interfaces, objects. That is the main thing. So that is the MVC. Those MVC things is given by the MVC design pattern. So AngularJS using Angular MVC design pattern at client side. So AngularJS also uses MVC design pattern to implement it at client side programming. So in MVC based application, like development process is split into three modules. One is the MVC. So one is the model, and second one is the view, and third one is the controller. Okay, here we have to see about model and view and controller. So MVC design pattern is like AngularJS is follows the MVC design pattern at client side web development. So here model. So model have some responsibilities as well as view and controller also have some responsibilities. What are the responsibilities? So mostly model is responsible for store the data storage responsible for data storage and view is responsible for data presentation. View is responsible for data presentation and controllers is like um, responsible for data processing. So how it is doing? So model is responsible for data storage and it will be implemented by using JavaScript variables, arrays, objects and array objects. So we simply saying that data storage, theoretically we understand model is using for data storage. So as a programmer, as a developer, we have to implement the code. So if you want to implement the code means how to implement. So the implementation we can done with variables. So these variables are belongs to JavaScript variables. And one more thing is and objects. So in JavaScript, everything is clear idea about variables and objects and array of objects. So by seeing for this term like this point, we have to aware about JavaScript because AngularJS is purely based on JavaScript. So if you have good in JavaScript, easy to understand for AngularJS. So here, if you are developing for AngularJS code, we are using for JavaScript variables, JavaScript objects as well as JavaScript array objects. So we should be know about good knowledge. We have to thoroughly understand and thoroughly get the knowledge about JavaScript. No doubt here we can discuss about JavaScript also. Mostly we are using it DOM, DOM and BOM. Here document object model and browser object model. So JavaScript thing is providing the facilities for document object model. How to read the data and how to send the information to the like frame or some document. So those things as well as browser reading and getting the data from browser. Though both the things is discussed by the JavaScript. Same thing we are using at model for maintaining for data or storage or retrieving and processing maintaining the data. And when come to the view, so here view mostly we are depend on HTML and CSS and AngularJS directives and something if you want to mobile application, then we are depend on bootstrap all the things we are depend. So views and mostly using for presentation purpose, and it is the bind with controller. So only controller will gives the how the view is getting and how the view is going to store the data at model. Everything is controlled by the controller. And come to the controller, here controller is responsible for data processing and it acts as a mediator between view and model, and controller will communicate with model to get the data. Controller will transfer the data to view. These are the things we have to see. So how the controller, earlier class like yesterday's class I shown for controller how the view. So is it paint is view to all the people? So yesterday itself I shown for to a diagram for how the view and controller communicate together. So left and right side left side and right side are the view and model, and the middle one is the controller. So controller is the main thing between the view and model. Here this is for view process the thing because end user always sending the request to the by seeing from the HTML page. So this is for view and this is for controller and this is for model. So for example, if you are going to maintain some request username sign up page or something else like username, password, login page. So end user is giving request from you. So once the request is sending to like end user giving, that request is taken by the controller, and controller will map the model. So which model? So in model itself, so many like information is there. So all the model is not belongs to the one request. So controller will decide so which model it should be mapped. So those things is given and taken care by the controller. So controller is main important in the MVC thing. And at the same time, here challenging situation is the state management. State management is a very important challenging issue in the like which one like client side modeling, because sometime data will be available. Here we are sending the data. So how much time data will be storing, and sometime user can give for like multiple requests. So multiple requests, how much time input will be available, and how when the input will be destroyed. All the things will be taken care by the state management. State management is one of the like challenging task in single page application. So here SPA is the main advantage about AngularJS, because by the feature of SPA means single page application. So that's why every web development industries move to the AngularJS single page application. In single page application, challenging situation is the state state management. State management, this is the very challenging situation. So here in this state management is the very challenging situation. So AngularJS supports for state management for multiple requests of single page, and at the same time one of primary intention of AngularJS development is to support the SPA development. That is the main thing. And one more thing is some features are there. The features are nothing but the features are data binding, features about AngularJS. So that is the data binding. So data binding is nothing but we are adding one code with multiple multiple frameworks, like multiple pages. For example, if you see about one example, any website for college or university, yesterday itself I shown for one college. So so this is the JNTU, like Jawaharlal Nehru University. So in this website we have multiple pages. So every page you have some common code. So in this one, multiple common codes are like head session, maybe some problem in the JN2 thing, and I will go with some another website. So you can observe for like a header session and like left panel, other things also they are using multiple times. So if you see about this one JNTU CHAC.in, it can maybe have like multiple pages. So this is the about CH administration. So one more thing you can see here, about CH have one header, like one menu bar, one header, and like some images, and footer also common to footer. You can see for here also this page. Here also same like header and menu item and some images. Something is common from about CH and administration. This is for administration, and earlier one is about CH. So these are the common code. This kind of common code we are not implement every time, but earlier 2009 projects everyone going to implement same common code they are maintaining for each and every pages. But now and AngularJS kind of thing we are using for data binding. Data binding nothing but one code we are binding with multiple pages. For example, so one code is 10 lines of code. One code is 10 lines of code. So we have used for 100 pages. 100 pages. But earlier time they are using for 100 pages itself, 10 lines, every 10 lines. Then it comes to 1000 lines of the code. But nowadays same 10 lines of code, same 10 lines of the code we are using for 100 pages, 100 pages, but in 100 pages we are not using for 10 lines of the code. Each and every page we have only taking for like one line of the code. 100 into 100 plus 10 lines of the code. 100 into, okay, total 110 lines of the code.
Actually, we have that include tag that we used to do in HTML includes. That also will do same, right?
Yeah, the thing is like a CSS, like how we are using CSS we have. So like external style sheet, how we are taking for external style sheet, same feature we are applying in terms of coding, because external style sheet we are taking for link from entire code, like link from entire code where it is available, that is external style sheet. But when come to the same feature we are using at like in AngularJS, but we are not taking for entire code. What are the behavior and what are the action we require at particular portion, we are taking that particular portion binding, that is nothing but binding. Here in CSS external style sheet, we are binding with external document into the our page, so there we are using one line of code. But there what we are doing, we are taking in terms of link, but here we are taking in terms of directives, because CSS external style sheets only doing for like providing the information, it's not doing for any dynamic actions. But when come to the like Angular JS, it doing for some behavioral, that is nothing but runtime behavior. So that runtime behavior is nothing but dynamic action. Sometimes user will give input, sometimes user is not giving input, like input. Based on the input, you should be take care about runtime behavior. That is nothing but it's only applicable to the particular. We are doing for only applicable for particular portion, particular portion. So portion of the data, that is nothing but main thing. So portion only, changing the entire thing is different, and changing the particular portion is we have to aware. So because changing entire thing is easier than the changing the particular portion, so because that is the main thing. So if you are understanding about CSS, how to change for particular portion background color or particular like font, everything we are doing for particular portion thing, then you can and easy to understand how to bind the AngularJS. So that is the main thing. And one more thing is here one more, like binding can be done in the two ways. Binding can be done in the two ways. One is the one way binding, another one is the two-way binding. So binding like data binding model, like data binding model variables objects are bind with the views. So here we are usually doing for binding means like here already in earlier example I'm shown for here example view and controller model. So here if you want to like user required any data from model means the model should give the information to the view, and you should be give the data as a binding kind of. So it's not taking for, it's not loading for new page, it's not loading for new page, but it's changing for request of the end user, and it gives the information in terms of binding. It gives the information same page, but it gives the same like in terms of binding. That is the main thing. So one-way binding and two-way binding are the like two facilities which is available in the AngularJS. So that is nothing but like first time in client-side frameworks, AngularJS introduced this data binding concept, because no other frameworks not providing for client-side like data binding. So this feature will reduce the lot of client-side coding. That is nothing but JavaScript. But sometime earlier what happened, only we required for 2 lines of the code. For the 2 lines of the code we have to load for entire JavaScript. It contains nearly 1,000 lines of the code. We have to load for entire JavaScript. Then it gives the memory issues and it gives the performance issues. So but when come to the AngularJS, we are accessing that particular portion. One more example, one more angle I will say, one more angle I will explain about binding. Everyone know about C language like library, C language library like hash include stdio.h. We are saying about header file, this one is header file. At same time when come to the Java, import java.io dot like some star, you can take for some star. Okay, this is we call as a library, this one we call as a library. So what is the difference between header file and library? So for example, in my class, in C language class, if I required for a 10th line, I'm depend on somewhat 10th line, I'm depend on math.h. So at 10th line, if I'm depend on math.h, for example, this header file is the math.h. Just imagine. Okay, math.h. So here what happened, here the math.h entire code will be loading at the main function. So already I have only 12 lines of the code. Just imagine my program length is the 12 lines of the code, but I required at 10th line math.h information. So suppose math.h have the 100 lines of the code. So actually my program have 10 lines and math.h have 100 lines. Total my program length is 100 plus 12. So total is 112 lines of 112 lines of the code. So if you are using for header files, the header file information is loaded at program itself. Then it goes to then the program length is going increase and performance also going to reduce. But when come to the Java, same program if required for 10 lines of the code, if required 10th line any mathematical related thing means it won't be loaded at a program itself. It be going to like a library and it going to execute there itself and it get the result from library and get the result from library and loaded at program and loaded at program. That is the main difference. Similarly here in the like CSS like external style sheet including and Java AngularJS binding. So AngularJS binding we can do for like wherever you require little like small portion, there only we are doing for some instruction like AngularJS instruction based on the AngularJS programming we are changing for that particular line. But earlier what you are doing, they're loading for entire thing. Then their like memory is increasing and performance is also decreasing. That is the main problem. So that is the main thing. And one more thing is AngularJS. One more feature is structure-oriented programming and highly testable. Second one is the structural programming, and third one is the TDD, and fourth one is the highly testable, highly testable, highly testable, and fifth one is the parallel programming. So this is the main thing, and sixth one is the routing. So these are the main features in the AngularJS. Structural programming. Structural programming, AngularJS is giving the information like developed in terms of structural programming. So we here everything is a clear clear cut idea. No need to confuse for like which statement we have to use which time, and everything we can clear idea to use, how to use and where to use and when to use. Everything is clear idea. And the main feature in the AngularJS is a TTD, that is network test driven development. So some earlier what happened, if you want to develop any code, we are getting the information from like team lead or manager, team manager. But here in AngularJS, testing persons also will give some idea about some AngularJS development. That is nothing but TDD. TDD stands for test driven development, and it is the latest development process in which tester will provide the guidelines to the developers. According to their guidelines, developers will modify or update the application development. Okay, and it is possible because of MVC structure. At any point of time, MVC based application are more comfortable to update. So that is the main thing. So TDD is a test driven development. And one more thing is highly testable. So highly testable means how we are testing for programming in Java and other things. Similarly, we can test here also, and unit testing also possible in AngularJS. So that thing also is possible. And here routing support for single page application. Like one more thing is routing only I have to explain, and then I will wind up the session. So here routing is like a single page application. So like a single page application is used to develop application with single page. And in this application, only first time page will be loaded from server. Only first time only page will be loaded server, and remaining all the request processed at client side without loading the whole page. This is very important. and come to the AngularJS, first time only page will be loaded. Remaining time it only process that client side without loading the whole page. AngularJS provides the special features to support for routing in a single page application. Routing concept of AngularJS provides organizing the multiple routes for multiple requests with a single page. That is the main thing. And one more challenging situation is the client side statement, like client side state management. That is one of the challenge tasks in the SPA, like single page application. State management is the challenging. That state management also we can achieve with client side management. Okay.
So Srinivasa, so one question. So
Yeah.
in MVC pattern, we don't have state management, right? We don't have sessions, cookies, or we use state objects. So in AngularJS, you are saying like when we go for single page framework, you can implement state management.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, here the thing is here state management nothing but we are thinking about AngularJS is going to modify or update at particular portion. So using JavaScript variables objects like array objects, we can do with like how much time that data will be available and which time it will be destroyed. So we are purely depend on JavaScript, like JavaScript based coding. So using JavaScript variables and AngularJS like features like AngularJS directives, we are achieving state management.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
And one more feature is the dependency injection. So dependency injection also is possible by the AngularJS. So the dependency injection is nothing but AngularJS like strongly supports for dependency injection. It means for like developing the independent code and organize the dependent object. That is nothing but developing for independent code and organizing for dependent object based on the requirement. So those things we have to see. And one more thing is, instead of depending on fixed set of object or values, we can make the application modules are a independent. That is the we are saying. And dependence injection is a concept is involved in several concepts of AngularJS. So here also we are using for dependency injection concept to achieve for dependency injection. So the main important dependency injection in the server side also to develop for independent code, as well as we have to provide for object based on the requirement. So the same thing we can achieve with dependency injection. And AngularJS is powered by the Google, and Google is maintain and support the AngularJS framework, and it organizes the AngularJS by using Google group of Google team in order to address all technical issues. So AngularJS is nowadays maintained by the Google, and Google is one of the testable and world like IT organization and world famous organization. And you already know about Google, no need to explain all the things. But here we have to note about AngularJS. AngularJS was initially developed by the Misco heavily, and it is also Google employee, and he is the author for several web related frameworks. So initially it is a separate thing. Next Google is powered by the AngularJS. Okay, I'm wind up the session.
Angular 2 you will start, or just Angular 1? One only.
Yeah, as per syllabus, we have to achieve it. We have to doing this program with Angular 1. Angular 2 is separate syllabus. If you require, I have to discuss with like 1 or 2 classes regarding how the Angular 2 is going to start, because our syllabus is based on the Angular 1. Okay guys, I'm wind up the session. Thank you.